Welcome to Product Momentum, a community of thought leaders and learners coming together to celebrate the product people who are shaping our way ahead. Inspired by our most pressing questions and insightful guests, we'll explore the challenges you face and offer practical, hands-on guidance your team can implement today. This is Product Momentum. Here are your hosts, Sean Flaherty and Paul Gebel.
Hey, Dan, we're just wrapping up one of my favorite conversations of the year, I think. How are you doing after that conversation?
Oh man, Paul, I am so fired up. That was such an inspiring conversation.
100%. Christian Idiodi just brings his whole self to the table. And I think the way that he thinks is really refreshing, really timely. I've got so much that I'm still processing in real time as we're kind of recording this after the fact. What did you take away from the conversation? Big picture, top takeaways.
Yeah, for me, one is a vernacular change. I'm not going to call it soft skills anymore. It definitely could be human skills for me from here on out. And mostly the many things we talk about, just how product management is a team sport, right? And how we need to connect with each other, human to human. That was so powerful.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think, it might be oversimplifying things to say everything we need to know about product management we learned in kindergarten, but that's kind of the gist of it. It's about thinking about the human on the other side of the screen and solving a problem and helping them out, and not just taking a product, which is a good idea, and capitalizing it to extract maximum value and just drain the life out of the product. So many places we went, and I think the central theme is just such a positive message of helping people and being kind. It kind of all boils down to just being a decent person and trying to help out will make better products and better product teams.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, let's get after it. Well, hey, folks, and welcome to the pod. Today, I am really excited to be joined by one of my favorite product people, Christian Idiodi. Christian's been a product leader for over 20 years. If you haven't heard of him before or read his work, a brief overview of his career. He's shaped companies like Career Builder, Merrill, Microsoft, Starbucks, Squarespace. He's passionate about helping companies implement the discipline of product management to build world-class products and new technologies. And he is the co-author of a few books, Transformed, and also the host of SVPG's podcast, Product Therapy. Christian, thanks for taking the time to join us today. I've been looking forward to this one.
Paul, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to spend time with you.
Absolutely. So I'm going to jump in. When we were chatting before the show, your journey, the way that you've helped people globally, you've really spent a career making product management practical for people. And you've clearly got a heart for helping others and leading people into this career we call product management. So I want to kind of start kind of front ways back and talk about the practical ways that you've been helping people. And then in sort of the second half, I want to explore some of those soft skills, kind of why you do what you do. So I kind of want to work backwards from the way that we usually talk and start with some of the practical things that you've been up to, because it's been a really interesting journey. Just to pick a point to start a conversation from, can you tell us about what you've been up to, especially your journeys throughout product leaders in Africa, from different experiences in the market there? What have you learned about what product management means outside of this kind of context that we're hearing most loudly in conferences and podcasts?
Yeah. Thanks. And in some ways, the little journey of my career now, I'm hoping to demystify a lot of what product management is, especially for a non-academic discipline that, there's not some degree that was historically people were learning product management, associate's bachelor's or master's program. I don't know of any doctor in product management out there in the world, or a PhD that can tout this, but it's existed in the world forever, right? I've always said the idea of creators, inventors, innovators, entrepreneur, all these fuzzy words of people that have woken up to solve problems. Product management has really institutionalized, in some way, a discipline that has existed forever, right? And what it has done, it has thought about doing it in a commercially repeatable manner. So within a company, we can innovate, we can be entrepreneurs, all this is fancy words for solve problems, and people give you something because you've done it well enough. And so in some ways, the unfortunate aspect when you have a discipline that is ever evolving and trying to define itself is many people get caught up on all of the frameworks, all of the rhetoric, all of the academic aspects of what the job is, and they lose the sense of how great work is done and how great problems are solved. I wouldn't see that in many mature companies because I go back to their history and their genesis, and they all started as product companies. A bunch of founders got together, they split the problem, they all work collaboratively. All the principles you teach a mature company probably existed at the very beginning. And they lose sight because they focus on the educational, academic aspects of how do we grow, how do we scale, what theories are there, and they lose sight of what got them started. And so in my journey now, I have focused heavily on trying to demystify the discipline, look for ways to explain it to people in a clear, compelling way that they can understand the nature of the work as collaborative problem solving, focused on solving problems in a meaningful way that customers will love, and also work for your business. And I've been trying to coach people on that. Now, most of my work has been in North America, I've been in Europe, I do some work in Asia, and even South America this day. I'm from Africa, and I realized a couple of years ago that all of my assumptions about what was true and great about work in other parts of the world may not be true in Africa. I went to Africa a couple of years ago, and a friend of mine told me he found a job in a newspaper. And I wrote code. I participated in solving that problem almost 20 years ago, like building the first stuff to move job to a digital format. And people going from, seeing an ad in newspaper to putting a code from the newspaper to eventually moving to the internet. And I had this false assumption that because it was solved 20 years ago, it's common technology, their job board, well, everybody should be doing it. And so I started to notice two trends. One, this false assumption that what is technologically now possible in other parts of the world is not just technologically possible in Africa, but also prevalent and adopted by Africans in such a meaningful way. And two, this inherent lack of permission, where people kind of felt like, do I have permission to actually do it, to try to solve this problem? And so there was an ecosystem that people spent a lot of time making money on a problem than from solving the problem. People making money from addressing a symptom than from providing a cure. People making money from going around the problem. So it's like, hey, we don't have power. Let's focus on generators and stuff than solving power. Hey, we don't have good roads. Let's build bigger cars to drive over the bad road. Hey, we don't have good health. Let's travel away to where there's good healthcare. And so these were a couple of very interesting trends that I discovered. And at the root of it, I saw two big opportunities. One, I have to accelerate the use of technology to solve problems. And I have to accelerate the evolution of the discipline of product management, which is how we make decisions on how the problems we solve and how we do it. And that's become my passion now.
Yeah. So if I could summarize, I heard so much in there. We could unpack what you've just said for an hour, but just to condense it down, it sounds like you're kind of diving into a polemic that's not really talked about, where founders solve a problem and they solve it well. It creates an organization around a product. And then the shift goes from helping people to extracting value from people. And that puts the product at odds with the consumers, with the users, with the clients, with the customers. And I think that you're really trying to bring the storytelling, the value, the problem solving back to product, as opposed to how do we capitalize this? How do we get it to market? How do we make the most money possible, to shifting it to how do we help the most people possible? Is that too small to put all of that into? Or it feels like there's a lot.
Absolutely right. And don't get it wrong. I tell people this all the time. We do want to make our businesses happy, and we do want to make them revenue and profit and growth and for that purpose. Right. But the magic of the discipline comes in striking the balance that if we focus on the customer, the people we are solving a problem for, our bar is to make them happy while making our business money or profit or stuff. And because I tell people doing one or the other is actually relatively very lazy and actually easy by itself. I tell people if you want to make all customers happy, buy them a bowl. or something like that. Like they'll all be like, hey, your customer, here's a free boat or a free airplane or whatever it is. Nobody is going to be like, hey, they got me a private. They'll be happy. But we can't do that because we don't make money. On the other hand, like just making money while not caring about our customers, you lose sight of the original reason you started a business. So management is the core discipline that holds the contract of value creation for a company. It reinforces that and lives that every day. The original promise that if I do something for you well, you will give me something back in return. And that's what this discipline is.
That's amazing. Thank you. Yeah, you mentioned before in the frameworks and all the methodologies that we sometimes lose sight of product sense. I'd love to hear kind of how you're defining product sense, and then, as product people, how we can grow it.
Yeah. Product sense is one of those words that I didn't know when I was in product, and there was what in the world is product sense. I thought it was an excuse for people to have sense or not have sense that way. And I'm like, is it like common sense, which is absolutely not common, or is there some magical dynamic in product sense? And many people tout how they get product sense and how they evolve it. We've always talked about what makes good product managers, our sense of the core soft skills, emotional intelligence, problem solving, relationship and stuff. What they bring, what they contribute to a company is this deep knowledge of their customer, a deep knowledge of their business, a deep knowledge of their industry, a deep knowledge of data, a deep knowledge of the products that they are working in. And because of that deep knowledge, we tend to trust them with the decisions of what we do. I often break down to CFOs the cost of a product team. And I'm like, okay, you're spending $2 million. Like they say they work in 2-week sprints. Like an average sprint is like $5,000. And you're going to trust somebody to just make a decision on what we blow $65,000 on every. Just imagine that's in your household. You're like, hey, honey, what are we spending? Why in the world would I trust that decision without some oversight or like, tell me, explain, justify it? But the best companies trust that person because they know more in the company about the people we're serving, about how it's going to work for the business. They have these insights, all of these things. Now, people look at product sense as that fine line that, okay, I've taken all the data, all of the input. I've now intuitively been able to make a decision that tends to be sound, that people tend to trust, And you see in many companies, there are people that everybody kind of agrees with. They always want their opinion before we make decisions. They always want to check in. Oh, no, check in with Daniel. It's like everything. That's not his department. But they might have business sense, institutional knowledge, industry sense in some ways. And what person may not even have data. It's not like you're going to them and like, go to Daniel for the data. You're saying, what does Daniel? Now, the reality of this is people think like, they are born with this magical gifting or stuff like that. But you find the people that have this sense to actually have practiced this for a very long time. It's kind of like in any sport, like when in doubt, they give it to their superstar. Just like, well, what do we do with the ball? Just give it to the actor. Why? Because it's a realm of decision making. Should I shoot? Should I pass? They have a higher chance of success than others in some way. Now, what do they have? Are they born with it? Are they gifted with it in some way? They have cultivated that skill. So in some ways, product sense can be learned, can be matured, can be grown, can be evolved by insights, by time with customers, by time with data, by time with industry. Over time, there starts to be this balance between what you think is intuition or gut versus what is a decision informed by a historical pattern of either massive failure or massive success or that. Yeah.
Hey everyone, just wanted to take a quick break in today's conversation to share some exciting news about ITX's upcoming Product and Design Conference taking place Thursday and Friday, June 27th and 28th, right here in Rochester, New York. It's going to be held at the Memorial Art Gallery, and it's going to be spread over 2 days. Day one featuring a half-day design and product workshop series with Prerna Singh, John Haggerty, Ryan Rumsey, and Patricia Reiners. Day two is going to be a fantastic day of keynotes, headed up by John Maida, VP of Design and AI at Microsoft, Denise Tillis, co-author of the new book, Product Operations, and Ryan Rumsey, CEO of Second Wave Dive and author of Business Thinking for Designers. Sprinkled in throughout the day of keynotes, we'll have the option to choose your own adventure. You can sit in on some live recordings of podcasts. You can network with some fantastic product and design professionals throughout the day, or catch one of our 3 fireside chats discussing some of the important themes and topics in our space that we'll be touching on throughout the day. To reserve a seat for you and a friend, or maybe treat your whole team to 2 amazing days of learning and networking, you can head on over to itx.com/conference 2024. That's itx.com/conference 2024. Looking forward to seeing you there, and let's get back to the show.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I think the way that I'm hearing this is it's actually part of a few conversations that I've heard recently around sort of product community conversations, blogs, conferences, where intuition, product sense, whatever adjective you want to use to describe this thing, often in the boardroom, it's looked down upon as unscientific or not data driven. But really what you're talking about, trusting that product leader to make those decisions, it comes from an immersion. You use the word cultivated, and I love that. It's not nature or nurture. Some people have it. It's not any of that. It's taking all of the subconscious body language, user feedback, little keywords that might not be, they might be qualitative and not exactly, a data point that we could put a flag in, but it's taking all of these, micro pieces of data. The team gives us feedback, users give us feedback, product behavior, interactions, and obviously revenue gives us feedback. But we have to have somebody at that center of all these decisions that can not just put it into a spreadsheet and spit out the mathematically correct answer. It's got to be a human response to all of these inputs. And I think Product Sense is really kind of wrapping all those intuitive pieces up into a collective whole.
Yeah, somebody joked with me just actually I was at a conference in Paris, and we're actually talking about product sense, and I kind of made the argument. Well, I mean, if it's only about the data and the inputs and stuff, then ChatGPT should have the best product sense. We should just check with it for all of the decisions we make. And I said, no matter how much we evolve with generative AI or all of that work, the idea of what is right or wrong for us at this time within this situation in this context can only be left to a human set and a human interpretation, because it is designed to solve a problem for humans. Again, we call them customers or fancy name. We call them for humans, and so at any point in time, the data, the insights, all of those things do not automatically translate into what is best for a human at this time, in this manner, in this environment, within this context. And that is where our sense, it's kind of that sixth sense of human construct must come in.
That's so amazing and just so apt for where we are right now. Yeah, you're talking about early on about how it's so easy to focus on the symptoms, right? And when in doubt, quote the show Home Improvement, more we just need more power. Right. But can you talk a little bit about how these soft skills of product management help empower us to get after, the underlying, kind of the underlying problems and finding cures?
Yeah. There are things I hire for and things I want to cultivate. And then there are things that define what competence is in the work. I mean, it's like I'm probably watching too much NBA sports these days, but you kind of expect athletes, NBA player to be able to shoot the ball and pass the ball and dribble the ball. I mean, you're not going to be like, we are professionals. Can you dribble the ball? But when you're trying to discern between two skilled players, you're looking for some other competencies or some other, people call it soft skills. I kind of like the name human skills. In some ways, can you communicate? Can you work better? Are you a good team player? Do you have leadership in that way? In our working products, those human skills that I care about, self-awareness, probably a big one, emotional intelligence, significant one too as well. I care about relationship building and influence. I do care about some things around time management, which is also a factor for me of self-awareness in some ways. And there's this inherent idea of leadership, and we can talk about that because that's kind of, you have to do a lot with influence than authority in this aspect. And, self-awareness for me is kind of how your actions, that sense of how your actions can affect people or decisions. Or you kind of have this inherent sense of like the levers or dynamics of decision making that says, I am present in a world with others, and my actions, my thoughts, my words can have an impact, positive, negatively, or otherwise. How I listen, how I discern, how I communicate. That's such an important piece, because when I talk about collaborative problem solving, I'm always specific. I just don't like problem solvers for product work, because, everybody has that uncle, father-in-law, somebody that has a giant toolbox and shed in the back of their house and is very good at like fixing things and doing things on their own, but probably terrible at working with other people to do it, And this is not that sport. This is not golf. It's more like a team sport, like basketball or soccer or stuff like. You can, no matter how skilled you are as an individual, we do not win the game against another team playing by ourselves. I mean, you could be a rock star and get lucky once in a while, but very difficult to do so. So I care about collaborative problem solving, people that can work with others to solve a problem, or can get out the best in others to solve a problem, or can admire, respect the contributions of others to do that. Competency for me is not just being able to do something, but knowing when to ask for help. Boy, see, I need that in a person. Very, very hard for me to start to coach that kind of stuff. I do it all by myself. I'm a rock star, hero complex, superhero. I don't really need a sidekick. I got this. Not the spot for you, right? Yeah. So I'm kind of pulling out these human skills that people are important. And if you're not good at communicating with others, even in a team sport, I get it. Some sports are like, I talk to myself and go to sleep and it's great. This is not one of those, And if you a whole generation of people, I've got teenagers in my household, and I often have to get them off the tiki-talkie and the Snapchat and the book face, Instagram brand and stuff. And I say, what's on the other side of that? Yep. And I needed to balance out your time talking to humans in a human condition. Like, hey, Paul, how are you? This is a human person. Then, in 3-letter acronym, WYD, IDK, IL, all of this kinds of shit. I'm like, not how human. Talk to you. It's not about human. I get it as a social language digitally, but I need your human skills, because people still have problems in the world outside of their digital ecosystem. And you need to understand them, you need to communicate to them, and you need to communicate those to a group of other people that are solving for them. So communication is not, I know how to chat or Slack, or I know how to send an email, or these are all excuses now in the modern world. I am an excellent communicator. I can type an email and I can send it. Is being able to listen actively, discern a problem, communicate the point succinctly, smart, brevity, intelligent, articulate. You see, they teach these things in school anymore, but it's the human skills.
Yeah. I think the context of human skills against AI or digital or social or whatever the platform is that you're talking about. And I don't want to turn the whole conversation into AI. Once you bring that in, it's easy for it to just become an AI conversation. But you brought up an idea a moment ago that I want to circle back to about ChatGPT should be the best product coach if these things are true. But these things aren't all there is to life. There's more to the conversation than just being mathematically correct or having the most insightful extraction of a conversation summary. So I think that's really timely, and it's actually taught me a lot recently since ChatGPT went mainstream. I've been playing around with it along with everyone else in the world, and it's really shown me the value of handwriting a note or taking the most important things from a meeting or a conversation, as opposed to taking everything and documenting it all. I think that skill of being able to position an idea in the context of a problem is a uniquely human skill, because the large language models, ChatGPT and everything else, they are designed to give you an answer no matter what. It's irrespective of the quality of the answer. And we can prompt engineer some really great insights, and it's a helpful tool for getting those conversations started, but it has to be finished with how does it impact humans Otherwise, we're just building machines to talk to machines through machines, and it just becomes a robot echo chamber.
Yes, there will always be involved for better prompting and better interpretation of what has come out of those. Yeah, good.
Yeah. So I want to shift gears a little bit and bring up the idea of, well, it's not exactly shifting gears. It's really building on where we're going. We obviously have more data available to us than we've ever had before, but we also have people who are feeling emotionally disconnected more than ever before. I also am a parent of teenagers and have all of these conversations all the time about being digitally savvy, being safe on the internet, being connected to humans and not just in group texts forever. How do we help communicate these ideas and the importance of keeping them central while keeping that product sense, that business sense, the craft of product management? Has to be data driven, has to be scientific, but it also needs to retain that humanity.
Yeah.
What hope do you have? Why do you keep writing books? What motivates you to keep this conversation alive?
It's, oh boy, we've seen a lot of good work from great product companies with great product teams and regular individuals in those teams. So it's not the people, it's mostly the environment in which they're given. And yes, great products come from great product teams, but they're just made up of regular people in that way. And because we've seen it so intently and clearly that there's really a difference between how the best companies work and how the rest, it's very, very hard for you not to challenge any company not to work as the best company. Because, when people ask me, like, why do companies try to transform themselves or work in this? It's mostly one either because of fear, like, oh my goodness, Amazon just came into our industry, we got to do something, or look at Stripe, or so, or frustration, like, oh my goodness, we're spending so much money, we're not innovating, we're not growing as fast as, they're just frustrated that things are not the way they used to be. Or like excitement, which often comes like financial, like if we work like Google, we will make money like Google and everybody will be rich like Google in that kind of way. There's that narrative in their head. But for me, the reality is that you can take care of your customers. You can truly, it is truly good for your customers and your business and your employees to work in an empowered environment for them to solve problems in a meaningful way. Like, what I mean, like, I want to hear more companies say, I just want to do better for the people that I serve and the people that work for me. And if you really want to do that, you will walk in this way telling me, like, it is better for you that there's a bug in my platform for 6 months. How is that good for your customer? I release twice a year because it is healthy for my business to manage the change. So that problem will stay for 6 months. And you see what I mean? Like, people tend to misunderstand what it means to care for your customers. In that way, you're letting them suffer a pain that you can solve because you don't have the infrastructure to deliver it better. Or you think it's better for your employees that they work in a command and control environment than like a factory, that you're a knowledge worker, you're a smart person, I should give you hard problems and trust that you come up with a good situation to work to solve it. So, the passion for like probably why we write books, why we care about this, why we're stubborn about this, on one end, because we recognize you will do better serving your customers and your business working in this way. On the other hand, we're stubborn about the product model because if you think about some of the most iconic products we use and love today that solve problems at a large macro scale, they come from companies that work this way. We may be talking on Zoom, we may be chatting in Google, we may be with AI. They didn't come from some legacy company that worked in a product model in that kind of way. So in some ways, we know it's the best way to do good work. And so you're curious about solving, improving healthcare, insecurity, unemployment, food, whatever the issue is. Why would we want you to work in another way and another model that fails? So, I coach people, I advise people, I challenge people on this because of what we've seen it do for countries and society. Yeah. And, Marty Cagan has been directly participant, say, 20 years ago, say, working in Asia. And we've seen people that attended training with him doing like Tencent or Alibaba and you're like, you can see what that does, creating a whole generation of talented people solving problems there. And boy, that inspires me. It inspires me that there may be a kid in a class today that I'm training that may be the next creator of something bigger than Apple, inventor of something meaningful. Yeah.
That's incredible. So for those of you who are listening on your favorite pod app, you don't get to see Christian's awesome shirt that says Transformed. So Christian, before we go, Transformed is Silicon Valley product group. Latest book, you're named on there. What do you want to tell us about it? I know that many of us in the product community were anxiously waiting for it to hit the streets.
Yeah, it's a lot of accumulation of our work over time in one book. And particularly what's really different is the audience for it. If you can imagine, we wrote inspired for product managers and for product teams to learn how to do good work. We realized that was not enough because you could want to do good work, but the environment is not right for you to do good work. And that was the responsibility of leadership. So we wrote Empowered to help leaders understand how to create that environment for product teams to succeed and to thrive, and how to coach them and lead them with context. And you even still recognize that even when you have product leadership with context, the environment and stuff, transformation into this way of working is an organizational thing. And so there's an audience, which is the most senior people, also clearly the CEO, if you want to be pointed about, if there's a message to somebody in a company, directly appointed. And we wanted to have a book that speaks to them, tells them, like, you're building a case for why the way you're working probably doesn't yield the results you want. We're building a case for why transform. We're building a case for what it means to transform. And we're hopefully sharing some convincing stories of what you can do when you transform. And, the book goes through real case studies of companies transforming. We share companies that are working in this way. And, and it's important because I want people to recognize not just that they can do it, but that it's going to be hard, but it's worth doing. And why it is good for your customers and your business when you do. And so the book is really, we want to talk about the principles that the best companies use, how to move to outcomes. And then we want to share a tremendous amount of stories that are compelling for you to say, okay, I understand why I should do this. I understand what I will need to do this and what it will look like when I have done it. And this is transforming to the product operating model.
Well, Christian, I wish we could go another half hour. I've been just like immersed in this mindset that you bring, the positivity, the care and compassion for humans instead of ones and zeros is somehow always a fresh topic to talk about. We get so in our heads as product people. It's hard to get out of the vanity metrics and the requirements gathering and remember, like you said, there's a human on the other side of that black mirror that's doing something to try to help you, and having these human conversations, I think, is really powerful. Before we let you go, besides your book and the SVPG blog, where else can people find you and what you're up to? Where can we follow the latest adventures of Christian Idiodi?
Yeah, you can follow me on LinkedIn. It's probably the best platform to do so. I am doing a lot of work in Africa through my foundation, the Innovate Africa Foundation. We have an Inspire Africa conference that we put on every year, and we bring people to do that, launching a fund for Africa, kind of a pre-early stage catalytic fund to help people get product market fit and to coach early entrepreneurs on product work in a meaningful way. We're doing a lot of work around computer literacy, around education in Africa, and building a good product leadership discipline on the continent. So you can follow my work through my foundation on LinkedIn or on svpg.com. And we will love to help in any ways we can on your journey.
Amazing. And we'll link to all those organizations in the show notes so people can find you and track this and follow the adventures. It's been a blast talking to you and unpacking these ideas, Christian. Thanks so much for taking the time and joining us today.
Oh, Daniel, always a pleasure. Glad to be back and to share with you. We should do this again soon.
Well, we'll hold you to that. We'll talk again soon.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Cheers.
Well, that's it for today. In line with our goals of transparency and listening, we really want to hear from you. Sean and I are committed to reading every piece of feedback that we get, so please leave a comment or a rating wherever you're listening to this podcast. Not only does it help us continue to improve, but it also helps the show climb up the rankings so that we can help other listeners move, touch, and inspire the world just like you're doing. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next episode.